Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're unpacking a really fascinating and honestly deeply relevant leadership philosophy based on the insights of Ian Slade. Today, we're looking at a fundamental conflict. It's a battle that exists inside literally every single person who steps into a management or leadership role. We're talking about the ultimate internal tug of war between two very different forces: wisdom and ego. Sounds like a simple, kind of ancient concept, right? But the way these two forces interact, it completely dictates the trajectory of a team, a project, or even a whole organization. It's a surprising but super well-documented fact in business research. A massive percentage of executive failures aren't actually because of a lack of technical skill. Nope. They happen because of a lack of emotional intelligence, specifically an unchecked ego. Let's be real. We all know how absolutely exhausting it is to work for an ego-driven boss. But the truth is, it's even more exhausting to actually be one. So we're going to break down exactly how this dilemma plays out, mapping the differences between leading with a defensive posture and leading with true, authentic wisdom. It's a subtle shift in mindset, sure, but it creates a massive ripple effect in how you operate day to day. Before we go any further into the mechanics of this philosophy, let's stop and ask a foundational question. What truly drives your leadership? Let's picture a highly relatable corporate scenario for a second. You're in a high-stakes meeting. A major project, maybe a product launch, has just hit a critical, very public snag. And suddenly, boom, all eyes turn to you for an answer. And that split second of intense pressure, what's your internal engine? Are you driven by a genuine, collaborative desire to untangle the mess and find the best possible solution for everyone involved? Or are you maybe just instinctively driven by the desperate need to look like you already have all the answers? It's a really tough question to answer honestly, because, human nature practically begs us to project invulnerability. We often think of leadership in these abstract organizational terms, but honestly, it's highly personal. Your internal driver determines your impact. So are you carefully steering the ship toward the best outcome? Or is your personal pride just white-knuckling the wheel? According to the source material we're looking at today, the core thesis comes down to this. To truly lead, you need wisdom, not ego. In our modern, high-octane corporate cultures, we so often mistakenly conflate a loud, dominant ego with strong leadership. We see someone who never backs down, someone who completely dominates the conversation, and we think, wow, that's power. But Ian Slade's philosophy completely flips that script. It dives into the psychological nuance of how these traits actually function in the real world. Ego might temporarily demand compliance, sure, but it does so because it's inherently brittle. It relies on a foundation of fear and forced authority. That classic, do this because I'm the boss mentality. Wisdom, on the other hand, inspires deep, voluntary commitment. Ego is rigid. It's terrified of being exposed as flawed. Wisdom is adaptable and incredibly resilient. Moving from that compliance to actual commitment requires a massive, intentional shift in how we approach our daily interactions with the people around us. The mechanism that unlocks this kind of true leadership is deceptively simple. It's the power of active listening. Smart leaders know its power, and they treat it as a crucial strategic tool. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is we aren't just talking about politely nodding your head while you internally formulate your next sentence, which, let's face it, is what a lot of us end up doing. We're talking about listening as a dedicated intelligence-gathering operation. When a leader actively listens, they are pulling in critical, unfiltered data. They're mapping the actual on-the-ground reality of the situation, rather than operating on the highly distorted map of their own assumptions. It is the fundamental practice of a wise leader. Mostly because you simply cannot learn anything new while your mouth is moving, right? By absorbing information rather than just broadcasting authority, a leader bridges that massive gap between merely holding a title and wielding actual transformative influence. Now, what's really fascinating here is how drastically this shift changes our internal monologues. Just listen to the way this first statement feels. I am always right. It's rigid. It operates like a heavily guarded fortress. Just think about the sheer, exhausting mental gymnastics required to maintain the illusion that you are never wrong in a fast-paced business environment. Honestly, it's a full-time job just defending that wall. Every single conversation becomes a threat assessment, a battle to be won. But then, feel the shift in tone when wisdom asks, what can I learn? Notice the warmth and the massive sense of relief in that perspective. You don't have to carry the burden of being the smartest person in the room anymore. Wisdom approaches a problem not with a defensive need to dominate, but with sincere, open curiosity. It relies on the absolute realization that the collective intelligence of your team will always outperform your isolated intelligence. So, what does this actually look like in practice? Rather than just giving us a generic checklist, Ian Slade maps this out as a really powerful chain reaction. Imagine a manager navigating a complex challenge. Step 1 is to listen before speaking. As we just discussed, this is the intelligence gathering phase. When you genuinely listen to your team without interrupting, you inevitably discover blind spots you didn't even know existed. And that new, critical data naturally forces the next phase, admitting mistakes. I mean, you can only admit a miscalculation if you've listened enough to realize you've made one in the first place. And once you clear that incredibly difficult hurdle of saying, hey, I was wrong, a fascinating thing happens. You completely eliminate the defensive posturing. This naturally, seamlessly leads to step 3, lifting others up. Because you're no longer threatened by your team's brilliance, you actively empower it. One wise, humble choice, directly and inevitably, enables the next. And this brilliantly illustrates the long-term payoff of choosing wisdom over ego. Turn failures into lessons and build trust that lasts. This right here is the ultimate return on investment. It's absolutely crucial to contrast lasting trust with the temporary fear-based compliance that ego generates. Look, fear-based compliance works fine when the waters are calm and the boss is watching. But the second a massive storm hits, say a sudden market downturn or a major PR crisis, teams built on fear will fracture. They will hide their mistakes just to survive the fallout. But lasting trust, born from a leader's willingness to be vulnerable and admit faults, creates a profoundly resilient culture. When you transform a failure into a permanent, valuable lesson for the entire team, you build the kind of deep, enduring trust that allows groups to weather massive storms and tackle seemingly impossible projects together. So the crucial point boils down to this: drop the ego. It really sounds that simple, and yet it is literally the hardest, most vital work any leader will ever undertake. Ian Slade's philosophy culminates in this direct, undeniable mandate. Notice that it's not a gentle suggestion to carefully manage your pride or to politely hide your ego during important meetings. No, it's a firm command to put the baggage down completely. Because ego is incredibly heavy. Imagine carrying around a massive, high-maintenance backpack filled with rocks labeled insecurity, pride, and fear of looking weak. It drains your energy, it monopolizes your bandwidth, and it actively alienates the very team you're supposed to be guiding. By making the conscious daily choice to simply drop that weight, you free up massive amounts of mental capital to actually do the real work of leadership. You free yourself to listen, to learn, and to connect. As we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a final, vital question to really chew on. Which voice is driving your decisions right now? Is it the loud, defensive voice of ego, whispering frantically that you need to protect your image and prove your superiority at all costs? Or is it the quiet, deeply curious voice of wisdom, asking what you can learn from the incredibly capable people sitting right across from you? The next time you walk into a contentious meeting, face a sudden crisis, or sit down to give a team member difficult feedback, pause for just 1 second. Identify that voice. Because the exact moment you recognize who is holding the microphone in your mind, you completely reclaim the power to choose how you lead. Thank you so much for joining me for this breakdown. Keep questioning your assumptions and keep asking the right questions.